Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I'd like to preface this by saying that even though it's a running gag that I'm not, I am in fact a female, so this entire review is completely devoid of the influence of the patriarchy, hence making it a valid analysis, apparently.
Let the demonetization process begin!
You are the fastest, the strongest, the absolute baddest, and a huge pain in the ass.
Before we get into my thoughts on the movie itself, I'd like to tackle the debacle that was the marketing behind this movie. It is absolutely my opinion that Marvel did not set out on the onset of this movie to make it an entirely social justice talking point for feminism, and hence the center of a massive controversy, but they certainly didn't help their case. Setting the release date to March 8th, International Women's Day, is not inherently an in-your-face SJW type thing. It's not really shoving SJW talking points down everyone's throats because we need to be inclusive of the women's. The subtle her in the movie trailer, again, not in your face. It would have been fine. It's a female-led action movie that isn't a big deal necessarily. We've had those before and no one bats an eye, so I don't see why it's such a big iconic thing that we need to make a big deal about. It kind of turns me off, not gonna lie, because it feels a little bit pandery to my genitals. My genitals don't have an opinion. It's up here that matters. And my brain is insulted by the fact that you think that I think that gender matters that much. But I digress. Do you honestly think that cinematic goers have just suddenly become the biggest misogynists in the year and a half since the release of Wonder Woman, or perhaps, I don't know, since Sarah Connor was a thing? Not inherently vagina related, the controversy, if it's not because she's a woman. It's in the approach to marketing, specifically Brie Larson's contribution to the whole shenanigans.
Other people besides white dudes like Star Wars and would love the opportunity to do a set visit. And I'm also saying I don't hate white dudes. I'm just saying we need to be conscious of our bias and do our part to make sure that everyone is in the room.
Let me explain why it's a bad idea for your lead actress to throw a political message behind an action movie about a superhero when marketing it to its spectators. When you decide to make something political, you alienate a lot of your market if you start to attach a message that is inherently exclusive. Let me explain. If I, hypothetically speaking, were deciding to make a multi-billion or multi-million-dollar franchise out of comic book superhero characters, the entire market for which is mostly supported off of the wallets of a certain demographic, let's say white males, and then let's pretend for a moment that we were coming out with a movie in that franchise, and our title actor for said movie decided that it would be an ideal scenario for her to insinuate that those people making up the views of the movie that she's promoting and getting hyped about said character-specific movie for aren't the very people who this movie was made for.
We are expanding to make films that better reflect the people that buy movie tickets, but they are not allowed enough chances to read public discourse on these films by the people that these films were made for. I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time.
Whom you are just going to alienate because politics. Consider this, Marvel. Captain Marvel is not one of your big-name iconic comic book heroes. She's not the DC Big Three, she's not Spider-Man, she's not the Hulk, not Deadpool even, and certainly no Wolverine. If we're using number of issues per property as an indication of a comic book franchise's popularity, Captain Marvel is a name lower on the totem pole than Captain America was in 2011. When Captain America, the first Avenger, released, it raked in 176 plus million in domestic. And it's had 739 issues from 1941 to present. That's about 9.5 issues per year, so that's not bad. Captain Marvel's name, however, is higher on the totem pole than, say, Ant-Man in 2015, which raked in 180 plus million in domestic. And Ant-Man and the Wasp, 2018, a more recent property, raked in 216 plus million in domestic. And that's 130 issues of the Ant-Man from 1959 to 2018, so that's about 2.2 per year. However, Captain Marvel is being released this year, with 159 issues released from 1968 to present. That is about 3.1 issues per year. It's barely more recognizable than Ant-Man, and much less so than Captain America. Don't tell me you don't need hype men, the people who actually know who the fuck Captain Marvel is, to build up excitement for a character that has casual comic readers remarking, "Captain Marvel? Don't you mean Shazam? I thought that was a DC character." And then also leaving the rest of the normies asking, "Captain Marvel who?" I get it. Controversy sells. This is true. Initial backlash from haters and the amount of support coming in from the stubborn other side of that boat that want it to succeed have an effect in real time. But it isn't the success after that initial release day, the notoriety of said film, that makes it a good movie. We remember the first Avengers movie because it was so hyped up. It was something new and it was something special.
You were my best friend. And you were the most powerful person I knew. Way before you could shoot fire from your fists.
So without further ado, let's get into my review of Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is the story of the pre-Avengers Initiative Nick Fury inspiration episode for the Avengers Initiative, meant to establish the Deus Ex Machina of what is going to be Avengers Endgame, presumably. Captain Marvel is the empowerment origin story of a disempowered member of our society. It tells the story of Nick Fury and how he lost the use of his other eye and hence became a cripple. First, I'm going to talk about what I liked about the movie, because believe it or not, I am an optimist at heart, and I can always find positives in a manner of things, and this is a Marvel movie, in fact. Not some indie student passion project that only a handful of people are ever going to see at Sundance, so it's not going to be bad, people. Alright? They put a little bit of effort into this, so I think that they should get some acknowledgement and recognition for it. Okay? Just because Brie Larson fucked up doesn't mean that the rest of everyone else needs to suffer for it. All of the Marvel movies, pretty much. Over the years, Marvel has been in operation producing the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They have what is called the Marvel formula for their movies, and it works. A divorce from gritty realism. This is a staple of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that allows the movies to be enjoyed by the masses as a whole. So it's a movie for pretty much anybody. Everything from the fast-paced action that rarely ever ends in significant injury or death to the copy-paste villain army that we've never met, and there's nothing about this villain army overall that actually grounds us to them, that makes their defeat all that significant. Which means that you're always rooting for the good guys the whole time. We are never really allowed any time to be invested in. Captain Marvel is certainly no exception to having generic evil bad guy clones that we haven't been given much reason to care about. When I say villain clones, I mean the henchmen, the, grunt of the villain. Not like Thanos type villains, because those are significant villains, but I mean the villains without names and faces. We don't care about these villains. The next one is subversion for the sake of humor. Another signature of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is, of course, the use of, quippy one-liners to break tensions at super intense moments.
I'm glad you asked that, because I wanted to take this time to explain my evil plan.
The non-showdown.
I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
Puny god.
And then the character that's there for simply easy comic relief or dialogue.
I am Groot.
Uh-huh.
I'm Groot.
No!
This is something utilized to divorce from the gritty realism that would be present, but is not. Captain Marvel, of course, has these moments, and they're frequently peppered in throughout the entirety of the movie. Now, this is something that can be both a good thing and a bad thing. People like to have a fun movie. That's obvious, and that's exactly what Marvel movies are. They're fun. I've just laid out what makes them so. However, some of us, me, wouldn't mind the characters having an impactful moment from time to time in a Marvel movie. We would like to care more about these characters more than just on a surface level, and we know that Marvel can do this.
I don't feel so good.
You're all right.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know.
they can and are capable of building up intense emotional scenes, but more often than not, they have a tendency to ruin it for the sake of a cheap laugh, effectively rendering that moment completely useless and wasting my time. If it ain't broke though, I guess, don't fix it, because your seats are pretty full. And judging by Marvel's level of success, I'm not gonna count it against them, so this is a plus. The next thing is character dynamics. Marvel is really good at writing dialogue between their characters that fills in the film when there's no action happening on screen.
How does Fury even see these?
He turns.
Sounds exhausting. The rest of the raw materials, Agent Barton can get his hands on pretty easily. Only major component he still needs is a power source.
Captain Marvel is no exception. The conversations we get to listen in on between Fury and Danvers are chock full of that classic Marvel quipping that we've all grown used to, with Fury and Danvers firing off at each other rapidly sassy one-liners non-stop as they work to complete their mission. Think buddy cop film, because that's exactly what their dynamic was, and it worked. It's one of the things of the movie that I really liked about it, but it can't all be good. And of course, since this is a Weebo review of a movie, we're gonna rip it apart just a little bit. Now we discuss the things that I didn't like about Captain Marvel, and oh boy, there are several. It's obvious who the creators of the film wanted us to care about. I mean, title character, anyone? The only problem is we don't. Not really. The entire film is supposed to revolve around Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, completing her mission for the Kree, with a side dish of her trying to reconcile who she is now with half-dream memories left over from before her amnesia and the 6 years post-amnesia that she's been a person. There is, of course, certainly a healthy dose of underlying female empowerment message along the lines of, you can do it, don't let people make you doubt yourself, be a stubborn bitch and get back in that race car type nonsense. This is something that the film honestly could have done without and been 10 times better. It's honestly more of a waste of time than it does anything for our understanding of Carol. Reason being is they tried to sneak it in through amnesia flashbacks rather than actually develop that naturally in what Carol was going through current day. This was with the intent that, one, empowerment qualifies as a character trait, and two, you'd learn something about Carol, except that's bad. Let me explain. It's a bad idea because conveying character depth through amnesia flashbacks is kind of a stupid thing. I shouldn't have to explain this, but I think I need to. If a character can't remember who they were before amnesia, defining them now through what they don't remember is not going to lead you down a path of success, because then the character isn't granted the opportunity to be fleshed out as they are, rather as what they were, which was exactly the problem with Captain Marvel. It's mind-boggling, honestly, that you think that this is... Honestly, who thinks that this is a good idea? Anyway, it crippled Captain Marvel's ability, the opportunity to have her be fleshed out as a character in the present. I went 2 hours watching this character on screen, and the only thing that I actually know about her as a person are the facts present to us through exposition. She was an Air Force pilot, she had a best friend, she has had amnesia for the past 6 years, and she has this energy force power, and she's also sassy. Sometimes. It's explicitly stated that she's supposed to be a loose cannon soldier type, so think Maverick from Top Gun, but that never really comes across, except for when Fury says that it is, so I guess that it is then. We don't see her actively defy anything because she can't take orders until at the very end when she's given a choice between a moral path and a not so moral path, which doesn't count in terms of mavericking about a character. But as far as sassy, it's not an adjective that I would apply to Brie Larson's character across the entirety of the movie. It shows up often enough that it's a character trait, but it goes away just as quickly. Brie Larson has a talent as an actress, I'll say that, but I don't think she was the right pick for this role, quite honestly. She doesn't give off the hero vibe. She's at her best in this role when she is interacting with her supporting cast, such as with Jude Law's character, Jolandar, her Kree commander. That dynamic was one I wish we'd had more of in the movie, quite honestly, because it would have given us a chance to see more of Vers, Captain Marvel, as a character post her amnesia, and it would have been more significant for the overall plot later on. But they focused too much on her pre-amnesia arc when it was that they were interacting, and not so much on who she was as a result of her amnesia, which I think is more important, quite honestly. Overall, Captain Marvel is not the reason to see Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is merely a method by which we are introduced to the more compelling characters of Captain Marvel, namely Nick Fury, Talos, Jolandar, and Goose, my personal favorite character actually. All of these characters are some degree of supporting character to Captain Marvel, but we end up caring about these individual characters much more than we do about our title character, which if that's something that would turn you off of a movie, then I wouldn't recommend Captain Marvel. But if you want something fun to watch for about 2 hours, then go nuts. As I said, this is a Marvel movie, so it's not a bad movie. Whether or not it's good, however, is dependent on how you measure it. If you're just watching it for 2 hours of entertainment, then it's, yeah, good. But if you actually think about it, the movie might start to irk you a bit for what it does to the rest of the Avengers franchise, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole. If you think about it, you're gonna start to hate it a little bit. You can tell that Captain Marvel suffers from what can be considered a lack of foresight on the part of Marvel by a few very crucial revelations. Let me lay it out for you. We are given the impression that Captain Marvel is our kickoff Avenger recruit character because Fury has this idea for the Avengers Initiative after his encounter with Marvel, but that kind of craps all over the idea behind Captain America, the first Avenger. Yeah. And then at the end of the movie, Captain Marvel unlocks the full potential of all of her powers, which she's had for the past 6 years, I might add, but has never once been able to demonstrate at full impact because the rest of the movie wouldn't exist then. Anyway, they're pretty kick-ass when she unlocks them, and suddenly she has a number of new skills such as flight, invulnerability to spaceships, and super strength, and of course her super blasts, which make her glowy and shit. Think Starfire, but more. That's fine. I'm not salty about the fact that she basically just married Sue that in the span of like 5 minutes. What I am salty about is that after demonstrating all of this nonsense at the end of the film, Captain Marvel gives Fury the communicator you see at the end of Endgame, and tells him, quote, "for emergencies only." Let me explain why this is a problem, okay? Marvel is telling me that Nick Fury has had this communicator to call on a trump card from this point in the MCU timeline onwards, which means that he's had it during the first Avengers movie when he was scrambling to bring together the Avengers Initiative that Captain Marvel had inspired to stop an invasion of Chitauri. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like that would count as an emergency. One of those situations that would warrant Captain Marvel coming back. The original announcement for Captain Marvel has much different intention than what we got. The, quote, long-rumored Captain Marvel film will arrive on July 6, 2018, giving Marvel its first female-led solo superhero film. Fang promises that it will be a cosmic adventure in the vein of Guardians of the Galaxy. So, we were promised something like Guardians of the Galaxy, but what we actually got was something more along the lines of a Thor movie, if I'm being honest. Somewhere along the line, the original intention of this movie and the character and what they were going to do with her was scrapped and everything was repurposed, all set up for our Deus Ex Machina character in Carol Danvers. We were given an origin story, something that was to the movie's detriment, and I'm not even sure it was a good idea for the franchise as a whole, if I'm being honest. This movie isn't bad, but if you were to look at the audience ratings on Rotten Tomato, it doesn't score as well with audiences compared to, say, Ant-Man and the Wasp. But the reason why is twofold, actually. One, it didn't live up to the hype it was marketed with, and two, the backlash that surrounds attaching a political message to a film in a franchise that up until now has been one relegated to simple fun and entertainment kind of cripples your ability to entertain an audience. Politicizing something that doesn't need to be politicized puts a sour taste in everyone's mouth. And if we learned anything from Ghostbusters, the female reboot, is that exact lesson. So, Hopefully when they come out with the first superhero action film that's significant, you know, down the road. When they do that next, hopefully third time's the charm and they can learn their lesson once and for all, because apparently it's a hard one to learn.